So we're here to teach you. We hope that you will take something home with you and maybe adapt more to living with birds. Storey and I, and we'll share some of what we've seen, have been imbued with hope because we've seen so many times with birds in particular that collectively we can make a huge difference with bird recovery, with bird conservation, through small actions even. So we hope to share some of those with you. And that is not really a selfless endeavor, because as we'll share with you this evening, birds provide a lot of things to humans, and things that they provide we overlook at our peril. So hopefully pay attention, grab onto one or two things as I go through this. Think about what you're going to take home to your immediate community, your neighbors, your family, your friends, so that together we can join the growing movement of people who are making a huge difference with bird conservation and therefore our own future as humans. So birds hold a special meaning for many of us. These birds that you're looking at are Bonny Doon birds. You might recognize them. I picked particularly visual ones, like Western bluebirds. And some of us are more sensory in the hearing realm and interested in music and sound. And the songs of birds are fascinating. You can go deeply into the complexity of bird sounds, but they're much more. Aldous Huxley suggested that birds are a gateway to being present.
You can stay right here.
Listening
Come here.
and being aware of birds can help us be here now.
Somebody needs to be muted on.
Somebody needs to be muted. Yes. Yeah. Please mute yourselves if you're,
Yeah, she's not paying
background
attention.
noise is
She's
carrying
talking.
forward into the rest of the Zoomosphere. All right.
Oh my God.
So back to Aldous
Good
Huxley.
boy. Yeah.
I
All
think
right.
the host can mute everyone as
And
well.
the host is going to mute everyone.
And this little girl is good girl.
Hang on.
She's good.
Mute
Oh, lay
all.
down like.
You are going to all be muted now. Goodbye. Okay, no matter how unaware of technology you are, you're muted. Okay. In one of Aldous Huxley's books, there was a trained mynah bird. And the mynah bird was going, attention, attention. And indeed, it doesn't have to be so blunt, so ham-fisted. Birds are doing that around us all the time. And so listening and being aware of a bird song around you, every time you step outside, if you're not hearing bird song, you're not here now in Bonny Doon. There's always bird song, right? And so let's take a minute and see if some of you can hear this. Let's see. Maybe, maybe not. No sound. Okay. Well, that's a chickadee sound. And this thrasher makes extraordinary sound. Look, it's not so colorful, not so memorable unless you see that schnoz. Look at that beat. And they also, yes? What? Advance. Oh, thank you. I'm working on it. Oh. If I don't hit advance, the songs don't play. Uh-oh. Hold on. Click the sound. There's the thrasher. Yes. You do get to hear bird song. Pretty distinct bird song. This thing is very loud and chattery, and usually at the top of something like this. And you'd think with a big beak like that, it could make some pretty loud noises, and it does. I want to thank, there's a lot of contributions tonight from the community. You don't know how many amazing people there are in Bonny Doon until you put a show together like this and ask for pictures and sound files and all that, and then the people come out. Brett Tyler is one of the nation's most amazing bird scientists, and he's in your community on Pine Ridge, and he contributed to pictures this evening. Thank you, Brett. Let's see if I can walk, chew gum and walk. And some birds do really have striking colors. if you probably have seen a northern flicker from afar, but if you don't get to see one close up, you don't get to really enjoy its extraordinary artwork. Another amazing individual that came out for us tonight is Tom Hamilton, a West Side Santa Cruz person who was watering a community garden one day, and nearby there were a bunch of people with binoculars looking up in the trees. He's like, "Hey, what are you all doing?" They said, "Oh, there's a least flycatcher over here." What? Anyway, an unusual bird for our area. Everybody was checking off their list and make sure they see the least flycatcher. He goes, "That's cool. What do you, oh, okay." And so he went and downloaded an application on his phone so he could start identifying birds by calls. I'll tell you about Merlin later. And then he's a photographer. So he goes, "Why don't I point my lens that direction?" And then you get to see what comes out of all of that. And it's just a way of saying that this person was not a birder not that long ago, and you might become one too, and it'll help you become present. Attention. Some birds look, oh, more songs. So Paul Babb, thank you for your photography, another amazing photographer from Bonny Doon that's into birds. And so you'll see a bunch of his stuff. Some of these birds are quite drab until you get Paul Babb looking into their eyes. Look at the eyes of this oak titmouse. They're everywhere. This bird is all around us in Bonny Doon. These are common year-round birds in Bonny Doon. You get to correct me if I'm wrong. Right. We even have common invasive birds in Bonny Doon, like terribly invasive, terribly problematic, but amazingly beautiful birds. So you probably have starlings around. They change color from time to time. There's going to be more noise here. That's great. So Buick's wren call, they sound so crabby to me, and they act so suspicious. And every bird has its own personality as you get to know them. No two species have anywhere near the same personalities, and some of the calls can sound somewhat similar. Isn't that obnoxious? Okay. And another, what I think of as a crabby and suspicious bird is this red-breasted nuthatch that's around. And, you know, drab, maybe somewhat colorful. Jody Frediani, another amazing photographer from our community, also, you know, taking pictures of whales mainly, but it has some great bird pictures that she shared with us. Thank you, Jody. And then some birds you really have to look at closely to identify. You want identifying features. You're going to have to see this tiny bit of a red cap on this ruby-crowned kinglet. Very small, beautiful bird. And maybe if you get close enough or think about it, you'll be able to recognize it. Maybe you'll need its call, which I didn't record. Now, some birds are just recognizable by everyone. I don't think anyone confuses the California quail with anything. You see it, you know that's a California quail, even if you're not a birder. And it's our state bird, right? It really fascinates people. The males have this top knot, right, which are a bunch of specialized feathers sticking out on the top of their heads. And Indians, native people here use those in basketry and clothing, ceremonially as art. And the females have a smaller top knot and less bold coloring. Hey, these birds, as I said, ignore them at your peril. They are tick vacuums. They love eating ticks. And they also disperse seeds. If you're wondering how all that blue blossom ceanothus got way down in the forest where it never was before, well, ceanothus is a favorite food of quail. They're running all over the place, dispersing seed all the time. So they're important in that, and especially important with climate change, right? We need seeds to move around. Here's a quail family. They grow up in coveys, and you know, they have all these babies in the spring, and then you count them and you go, my God, there's like 50 birds in that covey. Well, by the fall, there are like 30 birds in the covey because they get, they're really important prey for hawks and bobcats and coyotes. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. They're social, that we like them, I think, because we are social beings and quail are social beings. They're specialized. These males serve as lookouts They're so beautiful in the spring. Look at the coloration. So they're sentinels looking for predators. And guess what? When they warn their covey about a hawk or a coyote in the area, they're warning all of the birds in the area. Birds talk to one another. They understand each other's languages. They are all relying on one another to survive much more. So when a male cries out, all the birds, or when a male quail calls out, all the birds are paying attention. Wonder. Okay. Many of you don't know that at some point the California quail was headed towards rarity. They were market birds. They were being sold at $1 a piece or something like that in markets in San Francisco Bay Area, and they were almost wiped out in California. And so then comes the California Department of Fish and Game at the time and regulates hunting. Who needs government anyway? Make America Somalia again. So there was this big push that we had to do to restore quail because they were almost gone. If you're interested in it, check out that book, The California Quail, and it's underneath all sorts of mumbo jumbo on our screen. But the California Quail book is really fascinating, well-told story about California quail and all that, the habitat they need, like shrubs, like grassland, like seeds, like water. They need cover. They are complex species. If you've got them in your area, you're lucky. You go back east and there's no more bobwhite. That was their quail. There's no more bobwhite back east. That's the analog. So we're lucky to still have these here. And by the way, if quail, if their little babies are flying around soon, if they land in wet grass from the fog, from a little drizzle, the chances are they'll die of hypothermia. So they've evolved those little babies with trails or short grass from grazing. So we have to think about how to manage quail habitat even now. And so these quail and the males are, alarming. This is one of the problems for quail, Cooper's hawks. So somebody likened this, like if you're walking, like if you were a quail, if people were quail, you would go, I wonder if I'm going to be attacked by a terrorist right here. Like some knife-wielding terrorist comes in the room and cuts you up. Quail are thinking that all the time because Cooper's hawks are with them all the time. And that's pretty much what a Cooper hawk is to a quail, a knife-wielding terrorist around a corner. And so they are always, looking out, and they have a call. And so if the Cooper's hawk is a knife-wielding terrorist, then the blue jay is, the scrub jay here, are like the profiteering military-industrial complex. So they are liars. They're out to scare everyone all the time that there's a hawk around and benefit from it. So if you're scared, the knife-wielding terrorist, the scrub jay is crying, terrorist, terrorist, and you're going, where? Then the scrub jay comes in and eats your food. So not a great bird to have as a neighbor. They're unreliable. If that was the military-industrial complex, don't worry, there is a bird police force. So the swallows. So I live at Molino Creek Farm. We have all sorts of bird-eating predators until the swallows show up. The swallows just mob the heck out of the Cooper's hawks, out of all the other hawks. So a hawk comes over and swallows are dive bombing it and pecking it in the head. And then the hawks disappear and all the birds go, thank you, swallow, you've freed our people. And so have you ever been pecked by a bird? Anybody here been pecked by a bird? Raise your hand. It hurts, right? This is serious business. So swallows know just how to peck a hawk. And they also, well, to be fair, those scrub jays also attack hawks. I've seen them really causing damage to owls, barn owls in particular. So hawks aren't the only danger for birds. Humans, as I said, with the quail, hunt them. And this bird, the band-tailed pigeon, look at this beautiful picture. You see these band-tailed pigeons around, but you don't get to see them up close like this. That's how beautiful they are. Look at that eye. So our band-tailed pigeons were also almost hunted to extermination. They really came close. And they're a close relative of passenger pigeons, which we definitely did in through hunting. And so they're actually trying to regrow passenger pigeons by putting DNA in the bandtail pigeons. And so, you know, people worldwide are killing birds. Have you gone to France and tried to bird watch? I mean, I think that France eats even tiny birds. But also we're destroying their habitat. And that's the worst thing. So forests globally are down 2.9 billion breeding adults just in the past few years, just in the past 50 years. Birds are declining like 52% in grasslands, or 720 million birds lower. And 90% of losses just come from just a few groups of birds in particular that are, you know, their habitat is disappearing or they've got diseases. So, and then also climate change, right? We'll talk about the CZU fire, that and pesticides. I mean, you name it, birds are suffering from humans globally. And it's serious business if we're gonna continue to have our standard of living. We'll talk more about that. Thanks, Liz Ann Jensen, for this picture. Now we have, because of conservation work, this huge flocks of bandtail pigeons that, you know, come to Bonny Doon. And we can do it. We can put our minds to getting rid of pesticides that are bad for birds, right? That was a key factor in so much bird decline, or changing hunting regulations so we can recover the species. So modern people aren't the only reason for the decline of birds. This flightless duck, there are bones in the shell mound just south of Laguna Creek. You know, that big dune, it looks like a dune. That's a really old village site. And inside that, there are these birds' bones. This bird disappeared 8,000 years ago. So, you know, I think when people arrive, they go, wow, lots of big food here, and eat it up. And then they go, oh no, all those species are gone. Let's do some conservation now. So we're at that stage, right? We're doing conservation now in California with the new colonists, right? And so, yeah, this bird went extinct just like mastodons, horse and camel relatives, and all sorts of other wildlife species around 8,000 years ago. And oh, by the way, when this one went extinct, sea otter populations went way up. They were competing for the same food. So maybe extinction's good for somebody. Yeah, and so, you know, we haven't yet gotten to, you hear it? Yeah, so we haven't gotten to the kind of old world thing where even pigeon-sized birds look like soup. So mourning doves have never suffered quite the decline from hunting. And they're also quite beautiful. But still, you know, somebody might think they're tasty. We didn't get there. We get to hear this every morning. Okay, so how have birds been doing in Bonny Doon? We're lucky enough to have the Santa Cruz Bird Club that's done these bird atlases at different times. And if you're really interested in knowing like changes over time for Bonny Doon, I can send you this database. Some birds are declining. Some birds have disappeared in these sightings, and some birds are increasing. But I think there's 71 species on this database. If you're ever interested, well, you've at least got 71 species somewhere in Bonny Doon, right? Pretty diverse, a lot of birds to learn, and good science just for this place, right? And I said we should be inspired by things we've done right. And we almost drove condors to extinction, right? We were down to 22 birds, but through captive breeding and banning of lead ammunition and all sorts of other things, 500 birds now and increasing. The condor may be flying over Bonny Doon at some point. All of the vultures in India, in that part of Asia, died recently in the last decade. Almost all of them, many species, because of a drug, a painkiller, because the the cows looked like they were so bothered by the sores from tropical insects, they started giving them painkillers. And it turned out that all the vultures that ate the dead cattle died of kidney collapse like right afterwards. So how we make these things happen is still happening. Pesticides, we learn. Now we've got, I don't know, 20 different vultures to recover, like the condor in Asia because of that incident. And vultures do some important things, like who wants to kill up the roadkill, to clean up the roadkill, right? Vultures do. They love that stuff. And so, yeah, a super important group of species. And they're kind of ugly. They're kind of stinky. Maybe they look more beautiful to their mothers. But they do soar, and they are a raptor. They're big birds. They're beautiful. And, that head, the red head, is the turkey vulture. And maybe one day you'll see that multicolored condor head overhead. So vultures aren't the only ones providing a really important service. Hawks are. Now everybody starts paying attention when you say hawks and eagles. Very interesting because they're the terrorists and they're not social, and we're fascinated by them. So they kill rodents, right? They're really amazing hunters. Like this Cooper hawk can dive and twist into little like holes this big, moving at full steam, chasing birds. Very skilled hunters. And they also will pick off birds next to your bird feeder. So you could see their bird feeder being more than just seeds, but eating by birds, but birds eating birds, if you're lucky, maybe. So we have lots and lots of types of birds, of raptors in Bonny Doon. Some look quite similar, like the red tail and the red-shouldered hawk in this. The red-shouldered one's on the left and the red tail's on the right. And hey, if you ever hear in the Western movie some eagle screaming, right? It's the red-tailed hawk recording. It's not the eagle. And my favorite raptor is this harrier, northern harrier. It's just eats birds and mice all day long, every day. It's exterminator for rodents. So think about raptors. So how do I now talk you down off of the hawk? Like, oh, that was exciting. All right. So another exciting thing is happening right now, and this is one of my favorite artists, Charlie Harper, who does amazing artwork. Check it out. And his art's still fairly affordable. I think it's great. And it tells you stories about birds. You see the little moon? There's a tiny little crescent, like a tiny little moon. And these are birds in migration, right? These are all coming from the south to the north. They're migrating birds. That's happening right now. They move in the dark of night, right? So Charlie's telling you that. It's dark, it's night, they're moving. And they're moving from the tropics. See the palm tree? Right. So his art is not only beautiful, but also instructional. You know why they move at night? Because if they move during the day, there's all sorts of knife-wielding terrorists that'll get them. But still, even at night, there's bird-eating bats and bird-eating owls in the tropics. So still dangerous. They can't wait to get out of that territory. So each spring, 3.5 billion birds migrate back to the United States to breed. They come from as far south as, way down in Brazil, all the way up to right here in Bonny Doon. Exciting times. You can check out this birdcast thing. This is going to be fun. I'm going to show you, if I can, right now, what's going on with bird migration. Let's see if I can do it. Uh-oh. Mostly cloudy. Maybe not. There we go. Live migration maps. Here goes the red line is sunset. That's like right now, sunset. And let's see what the bird migration has been doing. Here's the sunset going across. See, after the sunsets, the birds move. Like, look at how many millions of birds are on the move right after sunset. And the sunset's it looks like it's just about to happen with us. And so the birds haven't really started moving here. But if you click on this thing, you can go back in time and see how many birds are moving around. Exciting stuff. And now you get to test like how I can go back to the show. I might, there it is. Okay. And here's some of these neotropical migratory songbirds. Neotropics, new tropics, migratory, yes.
So those birds, the night migration, is that the only thing those birds do at night?
Yeah, well, they're not really feeding much, right? Because they can't see.
They're daytime birds.
Yeah, moving at night. Yeah, they may land for a while and eat and then take off for another night. Is this true? Yeah, yeah. But sometimes, like the East Coast hummingbirds are flying out over the whole Gulf of Mexico. How does such a tiny bird go over so much water migrating with, very little fat? Thanks for the question. So we get swallows, right? Like barn swallows come. They were the first ones to arrive, spring equinox, right? And now because they used to nest in caves, and now that people are building buildings, they're up against buildings. And they have also declined a lot. So if it weren't for our buildings, they, might be much more imperiled. But yeah, they need our structures. Don't just remove their muddy nests as inconvenient.
There's a chat question.
Chat question.
Birdcast shows a radar point in Santa Cruz. Do you know who operates?
Oh, I don't. No, but this is the national network of mostly aviation radar. And so I suspect those are the radar systems that are guiding planes into San Jose Airport and things. That's where the radar points are. Thank you. Hard to take questions and still be on timeline, but I'll try. Look how beautiful these like barn swallows are. They're also moving too quickly to see them. And we also have these, cliff swallows, which are, disappearing in Bonny Doon and seem to have moved down to the coast for the most part. So if you don't like their muddy nests, put up netting, right? Use netting, wire mesh to cover the areas like before they get there, please, right? And bird spikes and that kind of thing. Take out the old nests when they're not, that's a lot of work to build the nest. So after they leave, take them out. Because they just keep reusing or building onto the side of old nests. And if you can't take them, let them do their thing 1 year and then take their nests out next time, right? Once they've nested in there, it's illegal to take them down. And inhumane and horrifying. So tree swallows also don't build muddy nests. They nest in trees. Look at the color on this thing. Hard to see. They're up in cavities in trees. We'll talk about that. Yeah, and there's our violet green swallow. So all these swallows are here, right? Like they've arrived in the last couple of weeks here, I think. And their aerial antics are just like, just get on your back and watch them on a warm day. It is beautiful sight to see what they're up to. And they are, just as the summer bugs get going, these things are mopping up insects. They eat bees, beetles, caterpillars, even flies, grasshoppers, moths, all sorts of bugs they're eating all the time. So they're important to us. Like if you don't like being invaded by like those face flies all summer, yeah, you want swallows around. The other thing that's arriving, like now, I think I heard one, there's an Allen's hummingbird. They've been a while, okay. And so this little hummingbird comes from way south to visit us. Now we've got look how, check out the colors because they're not as gorgeous as some other ones. Like Anna's, I think maybe a little more colorful. And this Anna's hummingbird is here year round. It nests here. So we got a visitor in the summer and a year-round hummingbird. These are super important for pollination. They also eat bugs. And they're beautiful. And everybody likes hummingbirds. Let's see if we can do this. You hear that? That's Anna's hummingbird. when they swoop down, their feathers catch the air and make that squeak. They're not making the squeak with their mouth. It's their tail squeak. You recognize that noise from your yard if you have hummingbirds? Do you recognize this noise? Because this is Alan's noise. Ready? Next. Tail squeak. Totally different tail squeak. Also, as Charlie Harper pointed out, there's all sorts of beautiful birds, warblers in particular, coming right now back for the summer. Very colorful birds. Now, these birds were too colorful, and people used to collect their eggs and their feathers for hat decoration. It was really like, oh, what kind of feather is that? Oh, this is a orange crowned warbler, crown feather. Oh, that's really cool, right? Not cool. So birds were getting hunted badly for feather collectors. And so that was way back in the early 1900s. They passed the Migratory Bird Treaty Act that protects all these neotropical migratory songbirds from that kind of collection from disturbing their nests. So we in the US have been long bird lovers all the way up to national policy. Oops, back one. Other beautiful birds, other beautiful warblers, they're all coming back, and the soundscape with them changes. You recognize this one? Right? Quick 3 beers, right? That's what this one's saying. And that's like the tourists that come in the summer, they're impatient and they want service fast. And so that we're familiar with that situation, aren't we? So when these migratory birds come, how do they know where to live, where to eat? Well, this chickadee, a year-round resident, it turns out, is their guide. It's their they plug into chickadee flocks, and the chickadees show them where to get food. Complex stuff, and they're all eating bugs all summer. So, hey, these things are important to you. And chickadees are breeding in cavities. This is a hole in a tree, right? So the chickadees are like the grandparents, the uncles. They're coming to visit during the summer. Super important for so many things, right? But these lack of these tree cavities have been long a threat to birds. There's not enough trees. We don't let trees get old. And who digs the holes? The woodpeckers. Some birds make their own cavities, like this flicker, but chickadees, there's no way they're carving out a hole in a hard tree. Other woodpeckers of Bonny Doon. Here, this one makes its own cavity. This is a pileated woodpecker making its own hole, and there's a tree swallow living in the hole. And this is what its nest looks like inside the cavity. Somebody carved it out and said, hey, look, a feather-lined nest. Some of them are more artistic than this. Look at that. Acorn woodpeckers also are around quite a bit, active cavity nesters and breeding in our area. And if you got to see an acorn woodpecker raising young in one of these holes, it's so much fun. Those birds are such loud complainers.
Do those woodpeckers not mix? I have a lot of acorn woodpeckers.
Right.
And I didn't know flickers existed.
Yeah, I don't see them overlapping a whole lot, but I mean, they're in the same area, but maybe not right next to each other. They've got big bills after all. Here's other things nesting in cavities, like the western bluebird, which really like almost went bye-bye because there weren't enough cavities for it to nest in our area. And by the way, if you have eucalyptus trees that are growing in riparian areas, they're taking out those softwoods that are really important for nesting birds. So that's one place eucalyptus really shouldn't be. And then the other take-home message about these birds that live in cavities, I know it's tempting to cut down every last dead tree in the CZU Lightning Complex fire. But look, those trees are all important for these cavity nesting birds, right? This beautiful western bluebird will depend on those trees until new trees grow up, get burned, and new cavities. That we're talking 50, right? 100-year cycles of cavities. So let's keep as many of those as we can in Bonny Doon. You'll see them fall over, and a few will be left, and those few will be super important at that point. Bluebirds, yes, are important in all sorts of pest control. Here's a whole menagerie of all of the year-round woodpeckers in your area. Eating ants, eating beetles, eating all sorts of pests out of trees. And some of them are super social and beautiful, just like us. How come they all look so similar? Right? These are different species. Pileated is the woody woodpecker of our world. And there it is in action, making a hole. Look, how can their brains withstand such a knocking? Well, it turns out they've got special liquid surrounding their brains because that's a lot of force. Otherwise, they'd have concussions all the time. Not all birds nest in cavities, of course. Some of them make mud nests and some of them weave a beautiful nest. We're familiar with what color are those eggs? It's got a specific name. It's robin egg blue. Because those really are robins. Robins do a very neat job of making a nest. And they also are very important year-round. Worm eaters, pest eaters, they're like, I wonder what we would do without birds, how many more pests we would have. And goldfinches are also very common around here, a few species, eat seeds like weed seeds. So maybe our weed problem would be worse without goldfinches, but they also move seeds around because they, like quail, don't digest them all that well. So they're spreading native seed and maybe weeds. And this nuthatch also is moving seeds and eating bugs. So it's one of those like Swiss Army knife birds. They're particularly important for spreading pine seeds around, if you like that kind of thing. These wrens in general also eat ticks, and wrens have very distinct look and crabby nature, right? Remember that crabby noise. About the 1, 2. Okay, so here's what you can do. Check out this. It's a little blurry, but vegetation management. We're all managing our vegetation, right? To be fire safe. Don't do that during nesting season. We're just getting into it. So I live on a farm and I have to go and tell the 5 farmers to stop, to like go quickly to cut down your cover crop, because if you wait 2 more weeks, you'll be grinding up baby birds and eggs. So you really have to pay attention and watch and see if birds are nesting and try and get your vegetation management done before that or after. See, like this calendar shows, right? So it's now, I think we're getting already too late. And then you got to wait until late August. Now, that's no fun if you're worried about fire, waiting to do vegetation control till late August. Because what happens in late August? The fires start coming. We know this is from the Loma fire in late September. You know, CZU fire was mid-August. It starts getting crispy, right? And this, like climate change, not only with these mega fires, affects us and birds. So we're going to talk about that. Let's see. Can I do this? I'm not sure it's worth it. Let's see. Yeah, this I thought was an amazing video. This is the 2020 lightning complexes lighting up from, and nobody remembers this, from Hurricane Genevieve. We are getting pieces of hurricanes now because of climate change coming into California, and that's what's lighting all the fires. So don't do that. Get out of the way, toolbar. Drag toolbar. Play thing. Hide participants. There we go. But there we go. Good. Not it. Okay. So my point is that climate change, hurricanes, lightning caused fires, birds effects. So this is the study. Pre and post CZU fire, birds, what happened? That's a lazuli bunting. Do you all remember if you were looking for birds at all, your whole world got rocked after the fire because that beautiful bird was everywhere. All of a sudden, it liked it. And so did hairy woodpeckers. They increased. But most species, many species declined. Like species that need dense canopy, like crowded stuff, like these species, declined after the fire. You might not even see these things much anymore if you live in a really roasted area. And these species that need an understory, like trees and understory, like the understory got cooked and the trees got maybe still left, these species and a few others declined. And if you want to read the report, we could get it to you. So besides climate change and fueled wildfires, let's talk about another human impact on birds. And that is like these things. Like what does cat food, overflowing trash, and fruit trees have in common with birds? Like if you're putting out these things, like, and then suddenly your baby gets like carried off, if your neighbor was doing this, right, you would be mad, right, at neighbor, right? And indeed, your neighbors are doing these things, and instead of carrying your baby off, they're carrying other babies off. Like this scrub jay, its population goes up immensely because of that cat food and trash and fruit. Too many corvids is the problem. Too much of a good thing. Steller's jays too, right? So where we go, these corvid populations figure out how to pick up our messiness, and they go nuts, like the ravens that weren't here before the 1989 earthquake, really. They've been following dumps throughout the Western United States, and then they get into farm areas and cities, and you've seen them here. They're very amazing birds, though, right? They live a long time. They're lifelong maters. So chances are the two that you see in your neighborhood, know you. They recognize you. You should give them names because they're living near you for a decade or more. They are part of your family there. They're very territorial. They don't, like, those are the same animals. And I saw one pair of ravens when I first moved to Molino Creek Farm in 2008. And they, I think, maybe fledged their first baby, and a bobcat killed the baby. Its body was lying in the grass, and those two parents cried for 3 weeks without eating from a tree, looking down on it and just making the most miserable sound. They're very emotionally connected with their kin, and they're really cool. Ravens just look really cool. Thanks, Katie Scott, for this amazing picture. Look at that bird, super intelligent. And they actually, this is in the way, they're taunting Katie's dogs, and they taunt my neighbor's dogs too. They actually play with their dogs. Crows are another thing that's really like taken off, and they look similar to ravens, but hang out in bigger packs, I think, all in all. Smaller statured, slightly different look. And these corvids, the jays and crows and ravens, have done a real number on the marble murrelet. Like if it needed more problems. They're nest robbers. These corvids like eat eggs and baby birds, and this murrelet was one of the reasons for its decline are all the campers in Big Basin and all of the people living around Big Basin. So they have this, and you should remember it. keep your stuff crumb clean. Move the cat food in. Keep it keep things cleaner so we don't have all these jays. Somebody I knew in Bonny Doon, I thought, what a sweet fellow. I went to visit him. He wanted to show me all his garden and all the birds. For years, he would talk about his garden and his birds. And one time I was biking, I stopped by and surprised him. He was sitting on his front porch with a gun. I said, what are you doing? Oh, I didn't ever tell you why I got all the songbirds. Been shooting the corvids for years. So yeah, I'm not advocating for that. That's illegal. And of course, the other thing that that comes with all that stuff is a nasty amount of rodents. Like, you don't think you've got rats? Yeah, you leave cat food and all that garbage out, you've got these ugly vermin in your yard for sure. And then you wonder, well, why are all the rats around chewing on my car and all this stuff? I got to put out rat poison. Hopefully nobody here does that. And it's starting to get harder to get, because what happens with that is the poison travels up the food chain, and then the next thing you know, maybe you see it, maybe you don't, but there's dead owls, dead raptors, because they die from eating the poison rodents. No good. And the coyotes that do that get mange. You'll see coyotes if you see coyotes with mange, chances are it's because they've been eating animals that got into rat poison. Not pleasant stuff. Let's keep this out, because you can rely on owls for rodent control. Look at this. Maybe you'll get to hear it scream. Maybe. Maybe. Maybe not. Yeah. Maybe? No. Okay. Screech owls, I thought once there was a coyote barking at me, but it was a screech owl. They're here in Bonny Doon. And great horned owls, or the most common owl, hoot, hoot, hoot. Pygmy owls. That's a pygmy owl call. Now, I think they're on the list of things that have pretty much gone from Bonny Doon recently. Yeah. So you might have used to hear this and wonder what it was at night, but I think you probably still will hear it one more time. It sort of sounds like a very broken backup noise right? Somebody's backing up slowly. But this one, I think you hear. Let's see if I can go to the next one. This one. That's that's a working backup sound, right? So that one's around Bonny Doon as well. Look at that beautiful owl. Also mopping up your pests, your rodent species. Let's see. It's so insistent it doesn't want to move forward. So look at this owl and its eyes and tell that owl you won't. You promise not to use rat poison. This owl, however, is not here. It's a snowy owl. So it's no chance it's coming here. There's no snow. But that's my cue to go, okay, now think about, that was all summer, right? Summer, spring migration, summer, everything's breeding here. And now we're transferred into winter. And here it is past the fall equinox, and we get a different bird. Burrowing owl, a different owl. These come from the Central Valley to the coast for the winter. They used to breed here in UCSC even, but the West Remote parking lot did them in. And then another bird that comes here in the winter is the golden crown sparrow coming from Alaska. And they are still here. Let's see. That's the noise. So all winter long, like in September, they arrive on the equinox almost always. I wake up, after a dark night and hear this, and I'm like, they're back. It's the winter noise. And Western meadowlarks arrive in the winter. And cedar waxwings, only in the winter. Thanks, Jennifer McNulty, for this picture. And this one, if you're in a nice forested area, the varied thrush looks like a robin, kinda, but more colorful, and a flute-like song. It's just so beautiful. Yeah. Okay, how do I do it? That's why she's here. Really? Oh. I've been, yes, so I made a mistake. Storey is here to help. And so this does not make a pleasant flute-like noise. What it makes is a terribly crackly noise. Machinery. If you hear bad machinery in the forest, it's not, it might be the mountain bikers making new trails, but it might be a varied thrush. Okay, thank you. And this is my favorite bird that comes back for the winter, red-breasted sapsucker. They also mate for life. So the same pair comes from Northern California to my orchard, and sometimes with babies, sometimes not. And then one year there's a pile of red-breasted sapsucker feathers in my orchard. So the Cooper's hawk, that knife-wielding terrorist, killed the mate. And the other one came back for 3 years all alone. Oh, heartbreaking. Anyway, beautiful bird. Okay. So, total switch back to some other, so that's the winter birds, right? Winter birds, a few. I think that's most of the winter birds, right? Things come from south in the summer, north from the winter. I got an interesting story for you on a Bonny Doon specific bird. Do you know purple martins? If you come from back east, there are these giant, look like hotels on poles for purple martins. People don't put those up here so much. These are in the Bonny Doon Ecological Reserve, and that's it for Santa Cruz County. Except after the CZU fire, they arrived at Molino Creek Farm, where I live, and they moved into not trees that were killed during the CZU fire, but trees that were killed during the Lockheed fire. They'd just gotten old enough and rotten enough that there were holes, and somehow took a turn and started a nesting colony there. This is the biggest swallow of our area. It's a type of swallow, and it's had a 24% drop in numbers since 1970, not only because of the lack of dead trees, but also because of starlings taking out. Yeah, starlings want cavities too, so they're a problem. East of the Rockies, they're nearly 100% reliant now on nest boxes. And that's where most of them are. Beautiful, beautiful birds. Here's another unusual bird that you might want to know. You're driving down your gravel road or trail, you're walking down the trail at night, and you see those glowing eyes, or something comes up right in front of your car. There are these porwills, common porwills. They're also called goat suckers, chupacabra. Yeah, they have weird whiskers, and they eat bugs at night. So many birds eating bugs during the day, and this one's eating bugs at night right along with the bats. And this one hibernates. Birds hibernate? Yeah, when it's not the right weather, it hibernates, like hummingbirds go torpid.
You have audio on that?
No, you get to do that at home. And I do recommend, listen to porwill, common porwill. They in bushes, right, close to the ground, right, Storey? Yeah. Yeah. So maybe just one or two more stories and then we get discussion. Here's wild turkeys you all wanted to hear about. So this species was introduced from Texas by our state wildlife department. And they tried and tried and tried, and they finally got them going in about 1959. That's how recently. They have now expanded to occupy about 25% of the state of California. Very successful introduction program. There are 250,000 turkeys in the state now. And they eat everything. They suck up lizards, snakes, seeds, just leaves, flowers. And by the way, if you haven't experienced this, they can be super aggressive to humans during the breeding season. Like, and that bird will mess you up. Do not mistake, they can hurt you. Yeah, some of you have been pecked by small birds. I've been pecked by a goose and it hurt for a while, but not a turkey. And turkeys can fly. Katie Scott somehow got this picture of a turkey in flight. Yeah, they're big and they scare dogs when they fly. Well, so for hunting, yeah, people love hunting turkeys. And still, I mean, you think, well, they're a pest, they should be eradicated. Like the pigs they get listed as a pest species, so you can hunt them and they get a tag later. You can hunt them year round. Not yet for turkeys. Our wildlife department's still enjoying the tag income from hunters. You should get a tag and hunt them. There was a native turkey, like that flightless duck, because they were too tasty 8,000 years ago. Native peoples hunted them out. And so the California native turkey went extinct 8,000 years ago. It was a little smaller than the turkey you saw. That's a skeleton from the La Brea tar pits. Turkeys will enjoy your bird food. That's not a turkey hanging by its neck. That's a turkey jumping up into a bird feeder. And speaking of bird feeders, something you might do is put out suet. So there's this Storey and I have been talking about it. I like it. You should consider, if you can afford bird food and do it right, and they come and eat, what a fascinating adventure. You should feel privileged that you can have that relationship. But you should do it right. Buy good suet, not cheap suet. There is a difference. And keep your feeding stations clean, because they can be bad vectors for disease. And you could think about ways of being inventive about keeping the corvids out of your bird food. So you're not feeding the wrong bird, too much of a wrong thing, or the, vermin, the rats, squirrels, right? They're squirrel-proof bird feeders. And if you aren't careful with your feeding stations, you can spread this like finch eye disease. It's a bacterial infection. So keep your feeders clean, disinfect them. You could give them like avian pox. You could that might also be spread through these feeding stations. That doesn't look comfortable. There's at least several strains of pox diseases that affect lots of birds. And then, of course, we hear about avian influenza, right? That can affect wild birds too, especially water birds, ducks, and the like. Maybe if you keep chickens and there's food for other birds, maybe try and figure out how to keep wild and domestic birds separate. I know that sounds like a pain, but it's important for the health of both groups. Yeah, avian influenza is really taking its toll. There are other diseases like salmonellosis and West Nile disease also spreading through. Yeah, both. Hey, this is the one you want me to hit. Yeah, let's see what happens. And moving water in particular, like, really attracts birds, and also keeping it aerated and healthy. That'll be a better thing to do for your water features. And yeah, you'll be amazed at how many birds drink how much water if you put it out in the summer, and how not easy it is to keep those water bowls clean regularly. Like, you got to continually do that. Okay. And you could get, like, maybe you like messing with things. You could get inventive about how to feed birds. Cats are a problem. I'm not going to dwell on this too much, but let me read you a couple statistics. 1 to 3 billion birds a year killed by domestic cats. And are your cats bird killers? Are some birds more susceptible? This object really works well if you want to try it. Nobody apparently that has cats wants to use it because their cats aren't bad or their cat won't be comfortable. But it does work well. Like, it'll significantly cut down on your cat killing birds, and also just don't put them out. Like, for the health of your cat, like, how many people have heard about lost cats, like, get eaten by coyotes? you might as well just keep them in these other types of cages so they're safe. And also birds are hitting windows all the time. Like 1 billion birds die in the US every year from hitting windows. Like almost as, yeah, maybe the same amount as the cats kill, right? But you can do stuff about it. The picture on the right is my 1/8-inch white paint pen, 4 inches apart, has like reduced the bird strikes on those windows nearly 100%. So not hard to fix. It once you get, I never see those lines anymore, right? They just disappear. Here's another problem. Bug zappers are killing not what you hope. They're not killing mosquitoes or biting bugs. They're killing everything else. And those bugs would be bird food otherwise. Right. And you can also use this tool by Audubon to figure out what native species to plant. You could go to Central Coast Wilds to restore native plants that are important for birds. This is down on Golf Club Drive. They collect Bonny Doon specific plants and will help you pick the bird-friendly ones like black sage, which makes a lot of tasty oil-rich seeds. Lupins grow a lot of interesting moths and make seeds for birds. Oaks are probably the most important species for birds around here, unless you live in a creek. Oaks are super, support so many different bugs, and acorns for acorn woodpeckers. In the understory of your conifer forest, keep the understory if you can. I've been seeing the understory come out after the fire everywhere. Some areas with understory are super important for birds. Let's try and maintain those areas. And please nod, give money to parks, whatever you can do, volunteer for them. State Parks is doing everything they can to manage the forests around here so they don't get catastrophic wildfire, so that the birds don't decline as precipitously as they did during the CZU wildfire. So there's patches are hot or less hot because they've been doing prescribed burns. And you can always put up bird boxes. And that's a lot of fun. Well, share this presentation if you want to look at some of these guidelines for how to do it, but it's almost getting too late to put them up this year, right? They need to go up already a month ago, 2 months ago. Okay, last bit. Storey and I have had a similar experience. Where do we get started? Some of you are more advanced in birding and some of you aren't. Hopefully we've inspired you to start looking and recognize or think back if you've done this. What was your spark bird? What sparked your interest in birds? Or what might spark your interest in birds? For Storey, it was looking out her window and it had been spring already, but there was a late snow and there was a cardinal in the snow in her place, Wisconsin at the time. We don't get these here, but there's equally interesting birds that may spark your or your kids or your neighbors' attention. Maybe not quite this bright, but maybe quite beautiful, like those bandtail pigeons. If you want to look at more, how can I do this? Storey works with the Wild Farm Alliance, which is probably making the biggest, the organization making the biggest on the ground difference for farms and birds. Farms take up so much of the land in the world, but farmers aren't really figuring out how to integrate so much. Wild Farm Alliance is developing hedgerows and nest box programs, working with people and really bringing back those lands in a more healthy way for birds. Great organization. You can also join the Santa Cruz Bird Club. So amazing information on their website. The Cornell Lab of Ornithology has a great website, and this Merlin Sound ID tool on your phone, which is invaluable. And if you want to keep your life list, you start keeping a list. The eBird application that they put out is the place to keep your list. And also your list will help education and science. This is that site that I told you about. I showed you the radar birdcast that Cornell also does. We have a Monterey Audubon Society. The Audubon Society, when I was 10, I went to the library and saw an Audubon magazine, and it said, I want that for my birthday. And my parents started a subscription to Audubon, I was a member at 10. Their publications are amazing. They're a really important educational organization. And this, the American Bird Conservancy, is probably doing the most real, like active conservation work on policy, especially important group if you're looking to support things. And that's all I've got. Thank you. Thank you. We'll turn up the lights and we have time for questions. A little bit.
Yeah, time for questions, and then Trina is gonna give us an update, but let me get the. lights
Oh,
here.
we've got our guest here. Yes, okay, the update then. The update first. Lights. Trina. Wow, that was sudden.
Here,
They don't do the gradual lighting.
so if we have time for a few questions, and if you could repeat the question.
I will. Yes. Questions? In the back, please.
You didn't mention kestrels, I used to see a lot more kestrels.
Right. Story?
There actually, there's more of them this year than there has been for the last couple of years.
Right.
Sorry, could I ask you to?
Yep, up here. So the question is, what's going on with kestrels? A gentleman mentioned that he hasn't been seeing as many, and Story's going to answer at the mic here so that people in Zoom can hear us.
Yeah, there was a decline over the last couple of years, but we're definitely seeing more, at least this year. As to why, I don't know that there's been enough research, at least on the West Coast. There's some studies going back east that have indicated that loss of habitat has been really critical.
Thanks for that. So, but to follow up, so you've been seeing less or more, or for how long? When's the change you've noticed?
Just, you feel quite.
Okay, right. Until how recently do you think? Yeah, 4 or 5 years. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I mean, this is why eBird's so good. Like if you can enter that stuff in, then you could start seeing these weird pockets and we can start understanding why they are in some places and declining in other places doing well. Thank you. You had a question.
About feeding birds. I mean, we're promoting that. but
Mhm.
There are some bad ways of doing it, what things to avoid.
Right. So I think like mainly keeping your feeding stations clean, right? That's the main thing. But of course, we don't want to feed the corvids if we can help it. So how do you not feed the jays, but feed other things? Like that's a hard one, right? So suet versus seeds. You want to do this?
Well,
So there's a question about
yeah,
suet.
suet is typically, for birds like the woodpeckers, some of the wrens. It's pretty high protein. There's lots of homemade suet recipes out there that are pretty easy to make. There is some pretty awful suet out there that you want to stay away from because it's full of like palm oil, which you don't want to give to birds. And then seed, the black hulled sunflower or a hulled sunflower or the Niger seed are all, good seeds to use. But what's hard is you have to decide, if you're going to feed birds, you probably are going to need to bring your feeders in at night, or you're going to have rats, or make sure that they are protected. But rats get into most everything. And birds get dependent on feeders. They're now seeing, especially on the East Coast, hummingbirds are not going south anymore because there are so many hummingbird feeders there. So it's that balance, but they are extremely delightful to have birds come to your feeders and to be able to watch them. And so it's something to look into and decide for yourself.
Does that get it, what you're looking for? Other questions? Yes. Yep. Right. Yeah, so black-shouldered kites, white-tailed kites, what
The
are we calling?
white-tailed kites.
White-tailed
I haven't
kites.
seen a black shoulder. I don't know that,
Oh, okay.
if there's been one, it has not been reported to
Right.
eBird since
Okay.
2008.
Yeah, all right.
White-tailed kites have been like the kestrels. They sort of disappeared again. But I know I've seen them down at UCSC at the Seymour Marine area. They're back there. I don't know if they're back at Año Nuevo, which is where they've also been in the past. So they may be popping back. So hopefully more.
I've seen a few on the cliffs.
Yeah.
If you're walking on the cliffs, you'll see them in the fields. You have a good chance, you know.
Cool. Thank you. Another question.
I have a lot of juncos, you know, we didn't mention much about them, they're here all year round.
That's right.
And I was wondering about their nesting.
Okay. We left out Junco.
We left out juncos. Oh dear.
Oh, dear.
Yes,
Yeah, that's the
they
most
are
common
around.
thing.
They are very common. And, you know, juncos actually nest in the grass. They can be very creative. I found a nest one time where they had built underneath a thistle plant. So it was really hard for anything to get in there but them. They're very prolific. They're kind of like the, you know, sparrows and jays. So you just have to watch. The biggest thing for nesting birds is to look for birds coming in with material in their beaks. And then, you know, just kind of keeping an eye on like, where are they going? What bush are they going into? If you can. Hummingbirds are really hard. So, and they start nesting in January and February in our area, the Anna's hummingbirds. So they're very difficult to find. So you just have to look for that tiny little cup nest. But juncos, I just look for them carrying nesting material to know where they are in the grass.
So these are dark-eyed Juncos, right? And I mean, this is one thing, here's your challenge is to get to know your Junco flock. They look like the same bird, right? No two birds are the same. Every one of those Juncos is slightly different. And you can start recognizing individuals if you've got your flock right around your house. A lot of fun. Other questions? Yes. There we go. This is why we co-produce, because yeah.
Most likely there was a nest nearby.
Yeah.
Oh, she had a chickadee that was very aggressive to them coming in and buzzing you. And yeah, usually when birds are like that, there's a couple of reasons. If it's a male, it may be possibly just being aggressive. You'll see male birds going after your side mirrors on your cars. Best thing to do there is to just drape them because they can actually damage themselves trying to attack it so much and spending a lot of energy with no success is going to happen. But I would think the chickadee probably might have had a nest somewhere nearby and just was trying to defend its territory.
Mhm. Yeah. I was at Kelly's Bakery when it was still in that little corner, near Bay Federal was there, and there's that patio, and there was a sign going into Bay Federal say, "Watch out, birds," and there was a bunch of umbrellas right there that you could pick up. They were not present. They walked right by the sign, right by the umbrellas, and got hammered by this bird. Heck, like I didn't feel that. Kept walked another step and got pecked again, and then he just looked so horrified, like ah. Yeah, they protect nests. Here and then next, yeah.
Seems like a lot, maybe it's not that many, but I notice them so much, the black phoebes.
Oh, yeah.
And very, personality, and they seem to kind of follow you around in there.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Right.
You know about that.
So the phoebes, yeah.
Black Phoebe.
The black phoebe. Well, that must mean you have a lot of good insects in your area because that's what they love. And a lot of times, just like when people rototill or till their fields, you'll see the birds behind the tractors. Phoebes, if you're kicking up insects from the grass, they're gonna be there trying to feed.
Yeah, so there's something called wake hunting. So the birds hunt on the wake of disturbance that you're making. So I actually driving down Highway 1, I saw a northern harrier going right alongside the cars in front of me because the car was scaring up birds, and the harrier was like, "Ah, got one," like that. So Phoebe's same thing apparently. Yeah.
Are there any known impacts of radio frequency radiation on bird populations?
Do we know? So we both are, we're in the bird literature enough to, I think we would have heard, but maybe not. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff that we might not have heard about. So the question was, is there known impacts of radio frequency on birds? And, you know, I'm a plant guy mostly. That's why you're working with me. But I love going up on Loma Prieta where there's amazing plant diversity. Like that ridge has incredible chaparral. And I don't like getting close to the radio towers. They give me a headache. So I don't know, birds go up into those high energy antenna spheres and what happens to them, because they definitely look like good nesting spots. But I don't know, haven't heard. Thank you. What else?
We have
Yep.
time for one more.
One more question. Who gets the last word with the question? Anybody on the internet putting questions in the chat?
Is West Nile still an issue? And if so, what birds are affected by it?
Can you do it?
Yeah, I mean, West Nile is still around, and the ones, crows, corvids are the most impacted by it. So if you see a dead crow or raven or jay, don't touch it with your bare hands. I think you're supposed to take it to the ag people to have it tested to be sure, because they want to keep track of that.
Yeah, West Nile, yeah, we know it is a bird vector disease, but also it's had terrible human and horse effects. I think horses get it really bad. So yeah, I encourage, anybody that sees a suspicious dead animal of any sort, like call Native Animal Rescue. They'll put you in touch with people who do necropsies for the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, who have offices right here in town and love their vets. They love getting into this business and figuring out what killed the barn owl at Younger Lagoon in 1995 when I was there. It must have been pesticides, they say. They took the barn owl and took it apart, and its whole esophagus was torn apart by the gopher it was swallowing, fighting all the way down. Yeah, so it's not always some nefarious disease or something. It's sometimes nasty nature. Okay, well, that was the last question then.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So I'm gonna stop sharing here, and hopefully I don't create another disaster like I did earlier. And Trina Barton is gonna join us from Supervisor Cummings' office and give us an update. Thank you, Trina.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you guys for having me. I'm here, I'm Trina Barton. I'm here from your Supervisor Justin Cummings' office. He is on the board of Save Our Shores, and they had a board meeting tonight. And I feel like lately he's been wishing he could be in multiple places at once. And so thank you for accommodating and letting me give our brief update tonight. I did want to share, well, Justin, of course, is hard at work with his priorities: sustainable land management, environmental protection, parks and open space, affordable housing, mental health and community services, and much more. But there are a couple state bills that we're keeping our eye on. One is AB 470, and that has to do with the AT&T's carrier of last resort, so the landline obligation. The other one is AB 518, and that's the low impact camping area ordinance, or LICA. So that's back. So I want to talk about those, and then I'll very briefly talk about mountain biking safety. I know that's a concern and an issue, something we've been working on and tracking. Measure Q, a little update on that. And then a very brief update on Justin's Coastal Commission reappointment. So AB 470, this is Tina McKinner's bill. AT&T came to lobby our office last week on this bill. Essentially, all from what I can tell, it's a kind of a patchwork. It's their way of trying to chip away at the carrier of last resort obligation, which is kind of the safety net, right? It's the communication safety net across the state. You know, making sure that everyone has the availability of a landline, access to a landline that's affordable and reliable. So they want to get rid of it. We know that. So this is a way to identify areas where they can kind of consider it well-served, whether that's cell coverage or different things. They'll say that's well-served. We don't need to have landline availability there, or there isn't much of a population, don't need to have it there. So start to chip away at this. So that's kind of what's happening with this bill. We have some major concerns with that, though. It doesn't address issues like power outages and things like that when your cell phones don't work with power outages, and perhaps your landlines do, and folks who just need that lifeline that is a landline. So we have concerns about that. We're tracking it. The county has put forward, we unanimously passed a letter of opposition, sent that to the author, and so we're keeping our eye on that. 518 LICA. This one, the author is Christopher Ward. We also put forward our office and was unanimously passed letter in opposition to this one too. Now the bill luckily kept the opt-out. So counties can opt out of having a LICA ordinance. However, it's still problematic, right? There's still not the no one on site, no one is required on site. So say our county doesn't have LICAs, but maybe San Mateo County or other counties have it. There's a concern around wildfire for us. There's a concern around different safety precautions that need to be there. And kind of from my perspective, it's another way of companies like HipCamp shifting some of the legal responsibility and liability onto counties for enforcement, administrative stuff. And that way, for example, their hosts, many of them are currently operating outside of the law, right? They're technically right now supposed to have a special occupancy permit. Many of them don't have that. It's hard to get that. So, so this kind of alleviates that. So their hosts don't have to do that, and they can just have a county ordinance. For us, we know our county, it's not right for our county, right? We don't want to have LICAs. It's just too much of a liability for fire and other things. So should this bill pass, I think Justin would be really willing to get a resolution before the board or something prohibiting it in our county, or some other kind of measure to really keep LICAs out of our county. But we still don't support this bill as written. I don't know what they could do to get our support, frankly. Around mountain biking safety. So our office, my colleague Sandy Brown, she had a meeting just this last week with Public Works, State Parks staff, community members, working on getting solutions to like targeted enforcement for folks who are cutting trails and cycling really fast down certain roadways and concerning motorists and neighbors and folks trying to get in and out of their driveways. So improve signage, stewardship programs to reduce trespassing, environmental harm, and safety issues. So we're trying to just bring everyone together to have this conversation and identify specific things that we can do and get done. And so signage is kind of that, I think, that first thing to go forward with, and that's what we're working on. Measure Q. So the Measure Q, which was the safe drinking water, clean beaches, wildlife risk reduction, and wildlife protection initiative that was passed in 24, it has a community advisory group. From our staff, Sandy Brown is on that advisory board. And it's really important because it's $7 million annually that can go to things like fuel reduction and other kinds of projects, environmental and otherwise, that we care about. So we wanted to have Sandy on the board so she can help us out. And if you have ideas or projects you'd like funding for, she's someone who can advocate for you in that regard. And so she'll talk more about that, but I just wanted to say that advisory board met for the first time last week. So that's convened and going. Lastly, I just want to briefly touch on, so Justin is currently on the Coastal Commission. He was elected by his colleagues to be the chair, and he's really enjoyed serving on the Coastal Commission. It's really good for this region. It's really good for us to have someone like Justin on that body to advocate for the things that we need, and to be a conduit for a voice right at the state level, and at that level at the state. It's a very powerful body. He has tremendous support. Kind of one of his calling cards is as a bridge builder. He's been bringing community groups, developers, environmental groups, just community members to the table with Coastal Commission staff, trying to find solutions in real time. And just communication, right? Just trying to work things out. Because of that, his colleagues really like him. Coastal staff really likes him. He's very popular in that role. However, he's up for reappointment, and it's the speaker's decision. So it's the Speaker of the Assembly makes the appointment. There's some interesting things happening at the state level. Many of you are following this. The Assembly is doing different stuff, right? Looking to gut CEQA and other things. So kind of moving away from environmental protection, some Democrats, not ours, not our elected officials, thank goodness. But so we're not quite sure where the speaker is aligned, but we hope that, he reselects Justin. Right now, we have Don Addis's support, Gail Pellerin, Jimmy Panetta, Bill Monning, some former elected officials, Mark Stone, Sam Farr, our current Senator John Laird, of course, is supportive. He has the building trades and other unions are supporting him. Environmental organizations all along the coast, up and down the coast, so many. All 3 counties nominated Justin. So he's very, very well liked and respected in this role, and we hope that he can continue it. But we're not sure right now, so we'll keep you posted on that. It's a little, unfortunately, exciting, and we really hope he gets it. But so that's all I have, and I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Recently, I read a small article in the newspaper that they were going to try to continue with the idea of maintaining our people who have wells in Bonny Doon are to put monitors on them. And the water department says our water isn't just our water, it belongs to everybody. Well, that's not.
Okay.
And I was hoping that Justin could look into that. I saw the article in the paper, and then there was never anything else, but they've tried it several times. And
Okay.
we would have to maintain it all, but pay for the water. That's
Interesting. Okay, well, I'll be sure to give you my card so we can follow up on that. Yes.
Do you know if any of the neighboring counties are opposing like San
Not yet.
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
She's asking if any of the neighboring counties are opposing LICA at this time, and I'm not aware of any. Yeah. Yes.
Changes in as far as we talked about, still no on-site supervision, no water,
Yeah.
Were there any changes that we're seeing?
I mean, it's pretty much the same though. It's really, at least they kept the opt-out, right? And John Laird had fought hard on our behalf for that, but so it's really the same. That's right. I think so. We've got Kim DeSerpa and Monica Martinez. I'm hoping that we would, well, it was, the opposition letter that we sent to the state was unanimously passed. So I hope that they would you know, should we pass the resolution? Yeah.
Again, this what issue are you discussing?
Oh, I'm sorry, the low impact camping area issue, the bill 518. Yes.
Would a person who has a large piece of property and could have several campers, could the neighbors object to that person doing it? I mean, I'm across from 150 acres.
Wow.
There could be a few campers there.
Yeah, you know, it's still allowing a max of 9 at a time, 9 campers. But it's, I mean, I mean, I think the idea is that, that neighbors do oppose that, right? Like neighbors would and do oppose that currently. It's happening now. And folks, you know, don't like it because of the concerns. You know, there's often no accountability, you know, and there's a lack of, fire personnel resources to get to every call and things like that. So, yeah, and it's currently, if they don't have a special occupancy permit, it's illegal also for them to have a commercial camp there. Well, I think it's case by case, you know, if people don't know about it unless they get a call, right? That there's a complaint, there's a smoke or there's noise or something, like maybe folks don't realize it's happening, you know, a little under the radar. Mhm. Well, thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, so I want to thank everybody in the room here and out in the world. I thank you very much again for the presentations tonight. I apologize for the technical glitches. What would an RBDA meeting be without them? And we look forward to seeing you all again sometime soon. Thank you.